Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat and his black and white cat.
Postman Pat's Market Day. Pat was looking through the Pencaster Gazette. On the back page there was a big advertisement that said, Pencaster Auction Market Limited. Annual prize show and sale, Saturday the 20th of September at 10:30 a.m. All classes of sheep, cattle and poultry, goats and pigs. Look at that, said Pat. It's years and years since I went to market. I do love a good sale. And it's a show as well.
Why don't you go? Said Mrs. Goggins, looking over his shoulder.
It starts at 10:30, said Pat. I'll be busy with my letters.
Oh, it'll go on all day, with all that to sell. You'll not miss much, said Mrs. Goggins. I've seen Herbert Pottage coming back from a big sale at 6 and 7 o'clock.
I bet young Julian would like it, said Pat. He's never been to market. That Saturday the letters were sorted and delivered in record time. Pat and Sarah and Julian caught the Greendale bus at 12:30. Miss Hubbard was driving, and she had 4 large baskets on the luggage rack, with lids on them. Pat puzzled about those baskets all the way to Pencaster. They looked like cat baskets, but Pat knew that Miss Hubbard didn't have any cats, let alone 4. He meant to ask her, but the bus was soon full, and she was too busy for conversation. When they got to Pencaster, they had beans on toast at Mosscrop's Cafe. Then Pat said, We'll be off to market then.
I haven't time for the market, said Sarah. Somebody has to do the shopping, you know.
We'd better come and help, said Pat.
No, it's all right, said Sarah. There isn't all that much shopping, and I want to pick a new pair of shoes in peace. I can manage. We'll meet for a cup of tea at 4, in time for the 5 o'clock bus.
It was a long walk to the market. It was on the edge of town, where there was plenty of room for all the trucks and trailers that brought the cows and sheep and goats and pigs to the market. There was a big car park, too, and it was filled with the farmers' cars and Land Rovers and vans and tractors and horse boxes. There were pens for the animals waiting to be sold, and there was a field at the back, full of noisy bullocks. Even though the sale had been on for almost 3 hours, new wagons full of sheep and cattle were still driving up. Others were being loaded up with animals that had been sold. There was the bleating and mooing and the grunting and squealing of pigs. There was the shouting of farmers and their men as they drove the cattle into the pens. And the market had its special mixture of smells. Animals and petrol, and concrete floors washed with disinfectant.
What a pom! Said Julian.
And what a noise, said Pat. I'd forgotten what it's like. There were crowds of farmers and their wives inside and outside. Some were looking at the lists of animals for sale. Some were going round the pens having a good look at a sow or a goat they might fancy. Some were shaking hands on a deal. Some were counting out rolls of £10 notes. Some were just having a good chat with friends and relations. Pat and Julian had to push and squeeze their way in, past all this busyness. At last they found a corner where they could see all that was going on inside the market. There was a space in the middle, a bit like a circus ring, where the animals were brought to be sold. There were passages and gates leading into it. All round the ring were galleries where the people stood. Above the ring there was a special box that made Julian think of the pulpit in church where the Reverend Tim stood on Sundays. but the Reverend was not in it. Instead, there was the most important man at the market, the auctioneer. He stood up there at a little desk with a wooden hammer in his hand, and looked down on everybody. He announced each animal as it came into the ring, in a voice that rang round that noisy place so clear and loud that everyone heard him. He said who was selling it, how heavy it was, and how old it was. Then he banged his hammer on the desk, looked around at everyone and said, "Come along now, ladies and gentlemen, who'll start us off? What am I bid? Shall I say 160? Who'll give me 160? 160? Thank you, sir. 160. 70? 80? 80? 85? 85? 85? Who'll say 90? £190 for this fine sow. 90? Thank you, madam. 95? 95? 200? Yes, thank you. 200. 200? Any more bids? 200? Will anyone say 210? No? 200? Is that your best bid, ladies and gentlemen? Going at 200 to the lady over there. Going for the first time? Bang with the hammer. Going for the second time? Another bang with the hammer. Going for the third time? And a final bang with the hammer, and a word in his ear from one of the helpers. Sold to Mrs. Cowan at £200. And next, and off he was again. Julian was in a muddle. How did the auctioneer know that Mrs. Cowan wanted that pig? She hadn't said anything at all. All she had done was to nod and smile. Julian thought it was a funny way to spend £200. Some people seemed to give the auctioneer a little wave when they wanted to buy something, or just touch the cap or hat. The auctioneer seemed to muddle the numbers up too. He went faster and faster. Sometimes when a lot of people wanted something, he got into a high-speed gabble and Julian couldn't tell a word he said.